Welcome to In the Loop Podcast, a podcast that is inspired by the breakaway roping lifestyle. I'm your host, Jordan Joe, professional rodeo athlete, NFR qualifier, and business owner. My goal is to promote the sport of breakaway roping, alongside with celebrating and highlighting elite competitors in and out of the arena. This podcast shares the raw and the real of breakaway roping, bringing you behind-the-scenes stories from competitors, producers, leaders, and the trailblazers, all sharing stories of the Western culture and the lifestyle that they live daily. Join me to talk about breakaway roping, the history, the present, and the future of our sport. If you want to be in the loop, you're in the right place. Thank you for joining us. Take a listen. Okay, guys, so today we are here with one of my good friends that I have gotten to know through the rodeo world, which I'm so blessed, is Amy Wilson is here with us today, even though she's not on camera because she asked if she couldn't be, even though she's on camera every day, which I feel like is ironic. But Amy, thanks for coming to the show today.
Hey, it's so good to be on here. We've talked about this forever, and so I'm glad it's finally worked out.
I know we've had this podcast planned for like a year and a half, not throwing that out there or anything like, that I'm a little butthurt about it, but anyway, we're here now, so it's all good. But Amy has been somebody that I have just had the privilege of getting to know because of rodeo and through rodeo. You probably, I don't know if you remember this, one of the first encounters with you that like I really got to be up close and personal with Amy Wilson was the year I won Cheyenne. You probably don't remember. I was riding my horse around the outside of the arena on the track, and she was exercising her horses. And when you guys see her on the Cowboy Channel and you see all these things, she is like I was totally fangirling. Like I was like stalking you. And then when you look at me, like I would look away and then you'd look away and then I'd look at you, and so it's like, oh my gosh, is that Amy Wilson? And now we kind of have a joke that, you're just Amy Wilson. But anyway, you were doing that. And so anyway, kind of the term of events, we all got to rope there. First year of breakaway roping at Cheyenne Frontier Days was such an amazing accolade and event. And then it turned out that I got to be on the stage with you for a little bit. And you said, I don't know if you've known this or not, but you just got an invite to go to New York, Rodeo New York. And I was like, what? No, I didn't. She's like, yeah, I don't want to spoil it for you, but did you know that? And I was like, well, thanks. So that was one of my first memories I had of like really kind of getting to know you. And I felt like that kind of kicked off our friendship. But you have seen so many things behind the scenes of breakaway roping, and you're a breakaway roper yourself. So talk a little bit about your passion for breakaway roping and, just kind of where that all came from.
Yeah, that was so cool to watch you win Cheyenne the very first year they had breakaway, and to get to be there and rope, and how fast entries filled up that day. I mean, they like crashed the website when they opened entries for Cheyenne. And so to see how far, yeah, it was crazy, but to see how far it's been able to come in just such a short amount of time is really exciting. And I've always loved being on a horse. I love rodeo. I love competing myself, and I love breakaway. And when I lived out east, working out of Nashville for RFD TV, I got to go to a lot of jackpots and amateur rodeos and run barrels and breakaway rope. And I just begged Randy and Patrick for years to add breakaway to the American. And the way the American worked was you needed 4,000 entries throughout the year to make up that $1 million side pot. So one year when the entries were down a little bit, they finally decided if we added the breakaway, that would help the entries. And so I think a big part of the breakaway being able to grow is just looking for those opportunities and being ready to show up and put on a great show. And thankfully the fans absolutely love the breakaway roping. So it's a great addition to rodeo at any level, but especially at the pro rodeo level. And so when they added breakaway to the American, I feel like it was after that it just really exploded. And there have been so many people over the years that have been great advocates for breakaway roping. I mean, you look back at women like Pam Minnick, and my experience with getting breakaway on the stage, I guess, or in the spotlight. Jackie Crawford, she made several trips and a lot of phone calls and showed up at events to really try to help Breakaway move forward. And so it's been fun to see all the different people that have stepped up and done everything they could, just like what you're doing with In the Loop and everything else that you're involved in, just to help promote breakaway roping and shine such a positive light on it. But I am just thrilled to see all the opportunities. I mean, I texted Martha Angeloni the other day and asked her how much she won this past week so I could talk about it on Western Sports Roundup yesterday. And it was over $94,000. And of course, 60 of that was in the team roping. But I just think it is so exciting to see the opportunities that there are now. And so, yeah, I've decided to try to get back to roping. I hadn't really roped much in the last few years, and I love it. And so I have the same horse that I had when I was in college. She's 19 this year, and I've been trying to get her in shape and get her belly off. And so we're on the same diet workout plan, and we're trying to get back to it. So it was fun. I actually got to rope this weekend with you at a benefit jackpot. And so it's, and my neighbor is amazing, Jamie Markham. So I go over and rope with her a bunch, and it's just so much fun to be back at it. And I just love that it's growing like it is.
Well, and, I think that there's so many things on there that I want to touch about. First of all, we got to give Jamie a shout out because she is probably wins the best neighbor of the year award.
Yes.
She does a lot. So we will, and we're going to have Jamie on the show too. Maybe it can be me, you and Jamie. Well, that would be fun.
Jamie and Bull, they come over and work my arena. They feed when I'm gone. They weed eat, mow. I mean, they do everything. I go eat dinner with them a lot. And so they are just such amazing neighbors. I feel so blessed to live right next to them.
And I'm sure Jamie does it with a smile on her face for those of you who know Jamie. But yeah, I mean, it's so cool. And when you're talking about the background and the history of rodeo, there's so many names that we could name. I've made so many phone calls to Pam Minnick, to Jamie, to JJ Hampton, Larry D. Guy, Jackie Crawford. I mean, you could throw them all out there. And all these young girls coming up, I would say, if anything, learn about your sport and the history, because there has been so many ladies that have went before us to advocate for the sport, and we are getting to live it up right now. And the best is yet to come for sure. But, I remember when you would go and you would win a $2,500, $5,000 jackpot. And it was just like, take me shopping and where else can we eat? Because that was just like a great day, and then Martha Angeloni walks away this last year and even the year prior with over $75,000 in her pocket, cash money. This is a career now. This is, and when you're talking about the American, I was there too, at that first event that they hosted. They announced it, and you had known, and I said, how long did you know this? And you're like, oh, for a little while. I've been working hard, but nobody really knew you were in the forefront of making the American, helping the American to be a part of breakaway roping and get that in. So you have been behind advocating for us on so many different things that nobody really knows about. So I just want to say thank you for that. But it was really the first place that gave a platform to breakaway ropers. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, why don't we have breakaway? And now, say 5, 6, 7 years, I don't know how many years we've been getting roped with the American. Now it's like, I wish people would stop having breakaways because there's literally something to go to every day of the week, and I have no time to even rest. Just kidding. I mean, I enjoy it, but it's pretty cool to see just how fast it's just been like wildfire, and the girls coming up and all of that. And so it's been pretty neat to see it all evolve so fast.
Yeah, I had said for a long time that when I was trying to get them to add the breakaway roping, that it's amazing to have an awesome barrel horse and to be able to compete. But I just feel like it is so hard to come by those amazing horses, and it's so expensive. And obviously barrel racing isn't for everyone. And the breakaway roping is so different because at that point, I mean, you could get a horse pretty cheap. If you like to rope, if you roped in high school or college, you could continue on, and now the horses are crazy expensive. The breakaway is so tough. I mean, it really is amazing how fast it has advanced in every aspect of it. But I like seeing it. I think it's awesome. And just to point out too, I mean, they added the breakaway, and because it wasn't at the pro rodeo level and the whole format of the American was you had to beat the best in the world, they didn't really have that. And so the breakaway roper wasn't eligible for that $1 million side pot for a few years. And yet the breakaway ropers were showing up and they were putting up a big part of that money. And I just think that's part of the growing pains. It's part of what it takes to get to the top and to get your event, I guess, respected and what it deserves. But I am so glad to see it now, having that opportunity and seeing Jackie Crawford win what she did this year. And then at the pro rodeos too, the ones that step up and add equal money. And I just think it's great. And I think it deserves that because the fans love it. It's an awesome event. And so hopefully I can get tuned up.
Well, I'm actually glad you're working full time at the Cowboy Channel because
Yeah, right.
so she doesn't rope consistently for I don't know how many years. She has just been able to practice a little bit on and off as she's been flying in, flying out, going and doing rodeos, all these other things that she does with her job because she is Amy Wilson. And then she comes back and then she goes to the benefit roping against 130 girls and almost places in both rounds, makes it back to the average, got the barrier in the short round to win a lot of money. And I'm like, really? I mean, I rope every day. Like, go away. Please stop coming. I mean, I don't want to hear it. And so, but that is another cool thing about breakaway roping is it is so tough, but then yet there's a love for it to where you don't have to, it's open for all opportunities as far as if you want to do it every day, if you want to do it on the weekends, if you want to do it at a youth level, at junior level, amateur level, pro level, there's so many opportunities now that it's just like thankful, like you said, to be able to get to be a part of it and get back after it. But
yeah, I love running. Oh, thank you. I love running barrels too. And as you know, here in Texas, I mean, you can go to multiple jackpots every day of the week here with some with really good added money, some bigger barrel races, obviously all the different rodeo opportunities. And so it's fun to see breakaway roping getting there too. So yeah, I love both events, but I definitely love the breakaway.
Yeah, you have to be partial because you're on my show, but well, I mean, I like barrels too. I will say that at the women's rodeo finals this weekend, Cheyenne Wimberly ran a beautiful bay roan, blue roan. I don't know what you call him. I guess it'd be a blue roan horse and kicked their butt. And man, there's so many girls. Laura Moat ran a 12-second run at the Stockyards in the Northside Coliseum. There was another I think Wiley Hodges is her name, ran another 12 right back to back. And then Cheyenne ran a 13, but Cheyenne walked away with the 60,000 at the end of the day. And I mean, I'm just as much of a fan of rodeo. And that's been something that you and I have got to discuss a lot too. And I think that so many things go overlooked by just the titles and the things that we see. We get to watch you every day on Western Sports Roundup, the Cowboy Channel at these different rodeo events and all these things. But you are truly an advocate and a fan of rodeo. Like you are passionate and love rodeo and the knowledge that you have. I love our little Tuesday night dinners at the Mexican food restaurant where we get to sit down and talk about all things rodeo, literally, and go through and talk from breakaway to barrel race to team roping to calf roping to the bronc ride to the bull riding, bareback ride. I mean, the whole week we cover all the events, which has been so much fun. But talk to me a little bit about your history and your past that people don't really maybe know about you. You're former Miss Rodeo America. You have been all over the world, several different media things that have gone on in your life to get you to where you're at. So talk about your love for rodeo and kind of how that's evolved over the past few years.
Yeah, I've just always loved it. I don't really come from a rodeo family. We farmed and ranched in Northwest Kansas. And whenever someone finds out that I'm from Colby, Kansas, they just, think it's pretty rough up there most of the time.
We roll our eyes is what happens.
Right. Yeah. Right. So I spent a lot of time on the tractor, farming, and I always loved cattle. But most of all, I loved being on the back of a horse, and I wanted to get involved in rodeo. I rode sale barn horses. My family ran the sale barn there. And so I never had a great horse until high school. And then I got a pretty nice horse. And so I think getting involved in the Rodeo Queen pageants was a way to learn more about pro rodeo and get those connections. And then it led all the way to being Miss Rodeo Kansas and Miss Rodeo America. In fact, I think I only held a couple titles before I was Miss Rodeo Kansas. So it was a very important part of what led me to the career I have now, just the connections I made specifically with Pam Minnick and introducing me to the right people. But I think back on the opportunities I had those 2 years and the rodeos I got to go to and the things I got to do. And it really was amazing. And it was also a great opportunity to really understand what it meant to promote pro rodeo and to understand it on every level. It was so important to me to represent the contestants, the stock contractors, the rodeos, and express what we do to the fans. And so I think that was important, especially for what I do now. But I have always loved competing myself. And I think that also just ties right into my passion for the sport. But I love all the events. I mean, watching an amazing bronc ride, there's really not much better than that. And then when it comes to, the other day, the team roping, it was just one run after another that was better and better. And it was exciting. Great calf roping runs are awesome. I mean, just across the board, I absolutely love the sport of rodeo and getting to be involved in it, tell the stories. It's always so much fun. I get asked all the time, like, who's your favorite interviewer? What's your favorite interview of all time? And it's just like when you get the chance to talk to winners and ask them questions about, what makes them who they are and able to accomplish what they do. I mean, that's so much fun. And I love it for myself because I understand that in life, in rodeo, whatever it is, your mental game is so important. And I think that's one thing that all winners have in common is being able to have a strong mental game and control their emotions to whatever extent it is. But yeah, it's been a fun journey, and it all started back in Colby, Kansas, and I'm glad to be in Texas now. That's for sure.
Well, I have my other part of my family, my relatives, my cousins, my aunt, they live in Kansas. And I remember we went to Abbeville, Kansas to the pro rodeo. It was one of the first rodeos that co-approved it with the Breakaway the very first year. And their main street is still like dirt.
Abbeville is an amazing rodeo. And I'm so proud to be from Kansas. I love Kansas. I love living in Texas now, but Abbeville is so much fun. And the year I went there is, one of the years, either Miss Rodeo Kansas or Miss Rodeo America. I went there both years, but we rode on a wagon. Bronc Rumford had his team of horses, and we made homemade ice cream on the wagon as we went from their ranch into town to the rodeo. And Justin Rumford was playing his guitar and singing, and it was so much fun. That's a great rodeo. And they actually, the year I was Miss Rodeo America, they decided to have a little breakaway roping match. And so I was matched up with, I think it was a junior high champion, and then two other local girls were on another team. And I jumped on someone's horse and we had a match breakaway roping there at Abbeville. So that's such a cool rodeo. And the pie there is amazing. So yeah, if people haven't been to Abbeville, they need to book their trip. That's a fun one.
That's what I was saying. Like the pie and the ice cream. I mean, I will never forget that place. Like I was over there, walking down Main Street thinking, oh my gosh, where am I at in Kansas? And I love Kansas too. The people there are amazing people. And the land is, I mean, there's parts everywhere in every part of the United States that you're like, oh, I'm not really sure about, but there are beautiful parts there too. But the people are great. And that rodeo, the stands, there's not just a whole bunch. I mean, it was jam packed. You couldn't even, I mean, there were people from miles that came, and it was so neat to see. And the pie, I will never forget. Like I even asked Raymond this year, if we wouldn't have been at the women's finals and doing that, I was like, hey, what about Abbeville? Because I'm like thinking pie and ice cream, yeah. And but it was a really fun rodeo, and those are my favorite rodeos, honestly, because it's like the people come from so far away just to be there, and it's such a community event, and then all the good things about rodeo come out, and it's a performance for sure. But yeah, there's wagons, the Rumfords there. It's just a great little rodeo too. But yeah, it was one of my favorites. But talk a little bit about the mind game. You're talking about mentality and having the winning mentality. I think that sometimes we think that is exclusive to competitors. But really, I mean, the more I am in a business and run my own business and have my podcast, it is in every part of daily life. And so tell me, what are some of the things that you've learned as you've been a broadcaster, media, breakaway roper, barrel racer, all the things, and maybe it's something you've learned as you've been, competing, broadcasting, or just from other people that you've interviewed. Like, what are some of the things that really stuck with you on the mentality side of it, having that winner's mindset?
So recently I've been listening, I guess not that recent, but I love listening to all the different sermons from Life Church. and they did a series on the mind. And it said Winning the War in Your Mind, I think is the series, if y'all want to go check it out. But he talked so much about how once you think a thought, that neural pathway has been created in your mind, and it's so much easier to think that same thought. And so that's why it's so important that you try to keep your thoughts positive. And I was able to talk to a junior rodeo association for their awards banquet. It's been a month or two ago. And I talked a lot about this because I wish there were a lot of things I would have learned at a younger age that I would have just implemented, and it would have just become so much more natural for me to do that. Because you think about it and you talk to yourself more than anything, or at least, the thoughts that you think every day over and over. And it's like, I was thinking about it, and I was like, the things that I think, or, when I look in the mirror or when I do certain things, it's like, I would never say that to anyone else, and it's the thoughts I'm having about myself. And so I think just learning to love yourself. And it's like, you think about what an amazing God we serve and how he created us. And it's like, when you look in the mirror, you should see yourself as that. And I also think part of the whole mind, I'm not sure, like overcoming things in your mind is just like, when you go to make a decision, Pastor Craig had a great saying about, you do what you do because of what you think of you. And so knowing who you are, and for me, it's knowing who I am in Christ, then I always come back to that. And the decisions I make are a reflection of who I think of me because of who I am in Christ. And so I'm not doing a very good job explaining this, but it's a great series on winning the war in your mind and how your thoughts impact that so much. And just knowing who you are, and your identity. And so I think that's so important. And it's been even more important to me in the past, year or two, with everything that I've gone through, to kind of like find myself again, I guess. And so anyway, I'm so grateful for where I'm at, and for the positive energy and mindset that I have now, and the excitement for life. And so it just all ties together with competing and with life and with the people I meet. And so it's, I don't explain it well, but go check out the series. It's great.
Well, it sounds great. And that's something, I was listening to Ed Mylett this morning as I was working out, and he's a personal coach as well. Plus, his goal is to leave a legacy behind that might help others with the struggles that he has been through. And he was talking about how one thing that is overlooked is the biggest competitors, the champions, the world title holders, the biggest thing they talk about and struggle with is their mind. And I think that is so cool that, we're tying that back in. It says we wear the armor of God. We have the helmet of salvation, the shield of faith, the sword of the spirit, all the things, the armor of God. And so it's so true that the older I get, the more I realize there is a war in your mind at all times, or at least there is in mine. And, those of us who are honest, but especially like in a place where you're at, in a place that people, and when I say the place you're at, I mean that you are on such a big platform and a stage, and so many people look to you, to the Cowboy Channel, to all these things. That's a hard place to be, because like for me, you're Amy Wilson off the camera. Like you and I give each other, I give you a hard time. You don't give me a hard time, but I give you a hard time all the time about, you're just Amy, but you are just Amy to me. But to everybody else, you're Amy Wilson. And that's such a hard role to play. And I think, especially with some of the things, the obstacles and the challenges that you overcame through the last year and a half, it was a hard season and a hard valley for you, but you overcame it and you walked through it. And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't know about you, and some of the challenges that you've been through. So what is something, if you were going to share with somebody that's going through some challenges right now, or walking through those dark places, but still having to show up and show out and do your job, because that's what you're expected of. But then, you're still dealing with this stuff. And really, honestly, it's everyday life that we go through that. But what's something that you would tell a lady or a young woman, a girl that is maybe going through some hard times in life right now, that helped you when you were walking through some of those places?
Well, I think first and foremost, I had some amazing friends, just like you and others, who checked in on me and were so encouraging and helpful. And part of what they encouraged me to do was to get professional help to figure out how to work through everything and how to just release all of the negative and the trauma and everything else. And that's just huge. And it was so hard. I mean, I look back at some of those times, like right before the short round at San Antonio. I mean, they were singing the national anthem, and for whatever reason, it's really hard to explain why, or, the timing of things. But for whatever reason, it just hit me. And I was just like, had to, go behind, it's where I'm at down there at San Antonio. Like I kind of went in the hallway, and tears were just streaming down my face. And I knew I had to pull it together in a matter of minutes. It's the short round, and I was doing the sideline interviews. And so I called a friend of mine real quick that had been through some stuff like this. And I just said, like, you have to help me. I am having a meltdown, and I have to get back to work. And she did, she prayed with me, and she told me, like, you just have to compartmentalize it. And now is not the time that you can deal with it or allow yourself to kind of release the hurt. Like, you have to do your job, and then later you can. And so that's what I did. And I read some books that were very helpful. I also talked to Heather Johnson, and she was amazing. And she sent me this text that said something to the effect of, head up, shoulders back, you walk with confidence because you're the daughter of a king. And with you, and he loves you. And I think the other thing that was really important was, obviously you always get a lot of opinions from other people. And I know a lot of times people mean really well. And I get way more amazing people, that are encouraging or that say that they appreciate what I do than the negative. But I still get some, I guess you would call it hate mail, or just comments from people. And so I think it's important to realize that you would not if you wouldn't take advice from those people, then don't take their criticism either. Because,
that's good.
If I want to improve, I watch myself back, I critique myself, which I do a lot. And then I go to someone like Pam Minnick, or someone who I really value their opinion because of what they've done and who they are. And then I improve in those areas thanks to them. And Justin McKee's a great one. If I ever have crutch words or whatever, he and his wife Jeannie have been amazing. And so he's really good about helping me with stuff that he notices too. So I always want to be better, because I always want to be able to showcase the winners and the sport of rodeo better. But kind of back to what I was saying, I think for women or girls or anyone who's dealing with a hard time, I think it's really important to give yourself grace. Because I really struggled with that. Like, I just thought I should have been smarter. How did I get here? I mean, I would have those thoughts. And then I just had to realize, like, kind of go back through it and remember that, I was doing the best I could. I was praying the entire time about it. I was making the decisions that I thought were best. And I've always prayed, for God's will over my life. And the thing with that is he gives us free will. And I wanted his plan for my life, but he also gives us the freedom to make our decisions. And in the end, I feel like it all works out for the good of those who love him. And because of what I went through, hopefully I can help others. And it's hard to describe just how awful it is. But now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm so thankful. And I feel like I see life a lot different than I did before. And so anyway, I feel like I'm in a really good place of just being happy about everything and excited for what's to come. And so, yeah, just get help, cling to your family and friends who are supportive, give yourself grace, and find a professional who will help you work through it all and become better because of it.
Well, and I will say, just sitting in the stands watching, I watched you walk through this trial in your life, this challenge in your life. And it was hard to watch. My initial reaction is like, I want to fix it for you. I want to, what can I do? How can I help? But really, that's not, what you needed. You needed to listen. But you have walked through some of this stuff. You have found the solutions, you have compartmentalized, but then you have also started to unwind and go through it and deal with it and all the things. But the thing I hated about it the most was that because of the circumstances that you were put in, not by your choice. I mean, it was your choice, but the outcome wasn't your choice.
Mm-hmm.
That was so rough, but you also picked up the shame and the guilt that wasn't yours to have. Like, it wasn't your fault. And so it's like that, some of that stuff was hard, but it's just, I'm just so, just taken back as not just your friend, but as a woman, as a daughter, as any of those things, that the strength that you had inside of you to rise up through it, beauty through the ashes, because you went through some ashes. But it was at the expense of somebody else, and I hate that. But if there are ladies out there who would like to, visit with you about some of these things, y'all please reach out to her, because I can just say, like, I haven't ever been through that, what you have, but you can help somebody who has. And then the things I went through, I might can help those other ladies too, or girls, or however that may be. But unless you walked through the fire, you have no idea what's going on, and you walk through the fire. And so for that, I just want to applaud you as a friend, as a woman. And just, man, it took some guts to get through it.
Well, thank you. It was all God. I mean, and everyone praying for me, for strength. I, before the trial, I went and spent some time with a friend. We made some jewelry, and she stamped in the back of the ring I made before the trial, so that I could be strong. And it was just like, there were so many different people that were there, and I have a whole new view of the justice system. And obviously it was just unreal to witness how everything went. But I will say that it gave me so much peace, the different people that have reached out with their own stories. And then also to know that no matter what, in the end, God wins. And the truth wins. And I think there's a lot of comfort and just reassuring myself of that. And so I also wanted to just mention, I mean, yes, I would be more than happy to help anyone who's walking through something similar. But the stats on domestic abuse is just insane. I had no idea how many people have dealt with that or been through that. And I'm so grateful for the ones who reached out to me and helped me, or even just said they had been through it. I mean, it would be someone who is gorgeous and so successful and has a great family. And they said, years ago, this happened, and don't ever look back, like, keep moving forward. You'll have a great life and it'll all work out. And Sheriff Donahue from the Man Up Crusade was also amazing throughout the entire thing. And so if you need any help, he's great. It's the Man Up Crusade. And at a lot of rodeos, you'll see where they wear purple. That's the color for domestic abuse, and just raise awareness about it. His own daughter went through it. And so he's had a firsthand experience at all of it. And so anyway, it's hard to describe just how awful and hurtful it all is, like at every level, physical, emotional, mental. So I'm glad you brought it up, because I'm finally to a point where I feel like I can talk about it to the extent of being willing to help others, and just share that I've been there too.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thankful that you came here. I mean, that you had the courage to talk about it, because you're no longer bound by it. It doesn't hold you. It doesn't control you anymore. Like, you are free. You have conquered this battle. You have walked through it, and there is nothing that can hold you back anymore. But that's one thing, like, I think, and maybe it's in our industry, and maybe we need to talk about it more, but it's like the domestic violence piece or part, it's like, if it's in the world, you're like, oh yeah, well, I'm sure you see it all the time. But I think because we're like rodeo specific, we don't maybe view it as like, oh, well, that happens in the rodeo industry. Oh yeah, right. No, that never happens. But just talking to you and your experiences, and the girls that did reach out to you that knew what you had been through in your domestic violence case, it was crazy to know that, like you said, on the outside, everything looks perfect and you're great and you're fine and it's all good and it's Facebook, Instagram perfect and all is well. Well, it's not. And it's like not a safe place for anybody to talk about it. And I'm so glad you're talking about it today, because this is a safe place. And there are women that are out there that are willing to be that safe place for you to come and talk about that and get help and get out of there. Like that's the biggest thing. And I remember even talking to you before, this all kind of came about. It was like a fear over like, well, and a fear and like a blame thing, like you had done something wrong. And I'm like, listening to you, I'm like, no, what? You haven't done anything wrong. Like, what are you talking about? And so just learning it's just a vicious thing. It's a cycle. And but you broke through that. I think that there's, so much that goes into it that's just not discussed. And I just want to tell anybody out there that's listening, if you've been in a domestic violence case or situation, if you're in one right now, like, please get help, because it's not worth it. It's not worth you going through all of the things that it puts you through, like you said, mentally, physically, emotionally. And it's something that you will battle your whole life. Like, it's not just going to go away.
Yeah. And I think the thing you said about it being a cycle, I think that's so important for people to understand who haven't ever been involved in a domestic abuse situation, is that it's not bad all the time. Because I would always have people ask me, well, didn't you see the signs? Well, didn't you this? Or, if it was bad, why didn't you leave? And it's because it is a cycle. It starts with love bombing, like you're the greatest thing that they could ever imagine. And then pretty soon it becomes like everything's your fault. And you're just always trying to obtain that same level that you had at the beginning. And then as soon as you decide like this can't go on, you can't be treated like this is a toxic relationship, then it starts back over, and it is just that endless cycle. And for me, I just felt like I had someone come up to me at the NFR, and it's someone I really respect. And they said, I see it all over you and you need to get out. And I said, I can't. I've made a commitment, like I can't get out.
Married.
I believe in that commitment, and it's for better, for worse. Right. And, and I've since read a lot about that and how, for better, for worse, it doesn't mean being abused by someone, and so I'm really thankful for the different things that happened along the way that saved me. Honestly. But I think it's, when you mentioned the cycle, I was like, I feel like that's something that a lot of people who've never experienced it, which I'm thankful that they don't understand and that they haven't experienced it. But that is such a huge part of it, is that it's just such a cycle.
But you came out of it on the other side of it. You kicked its butt, took its name.
I don't know about that, but I survived.
You did. You are a survivor, and that gives me hope and faith to stand on, because I have seen you do it, and I saw you do it when it wasn't easy to do. That's another thing. Like, I think everybody on the outside in, like, just listening to your conversations, it's like, oh, well, get out and do this and do that. Well, for you, it just didn't seem that easy. But it is easy if you're given an opinion, just like we can even relate this back to roping. You're sitting there and you're not roping, you're not competing. It's easy to give advice and your opinions and be an armchair quarterback, so to speak. But when you're in the middle of the fight, it's not that easy, but you are worth more. And when you were talking about your identity and all of those things, and I'm just, if anything I could do different in my life, it would be to I would look back and tell my younger self, like, you are good because of who you are. Like, don't try to be somebody else. Just be yourself and love yourself. And I think if we can start growing our youth in that, to love yourself as you are, be different. God has created us different. There's no other Amy Wilson out there, just you. There's no other Jordan out there, just me, And so I've learned to love and embrace that. And it's an everyday challenge. It's not just like, I think we all think, oh yeah, I'm going to get that. I'm going to check it off my list, and then I'm going to skip on to the next thing. That hasn't happened to me yet. So,
yeah, I think just really, I always have a standard of excellence for myself, and I can be a little bit of a perfectionist in certain ways and want things to be the very best they possibly can. But at the same time, to just, always be thankful that God created me, with the gifts and abilities he did, and to try to fulfill my purpose here. I think that I always try to keep that as a mindset. And I've always had, since I was little, I've always had a lot of dreams and goals for myself. And so it's been a fun life, and it continues to be fun. And you mentioned all the different opinions people have. And when you're on TV, you get a lot of different opinions. And I know at the beginning, it's so cool what the Cowboy Channel has done, for rodeo, and it's now at our fingertips all the time. And I think that is just amazing, because I remember when I was little and it was like you got to watch the NFR if you wanted to stay up half the night,
Seriously,
So,
I was exhausted for school the next day.
yeah, no kidding. So I think in so many ways, it's just been amazing, the growth there as well. But then it also, we see the same specialty acts or hear the same jokes or whatever as we go from rodeo to rodeo, but most people didn't. And so then when we just started airing rodeos, live, I know some of those guys got a lot of negative feedback. And I remember telling Justin Rumford, like, look at all the buckles you've won. Like, you're the best year after year. And I said, here's the deal. Like, you can be the best, most amazing, juiciest, sweetest peach there's ever been, and there's still somebody who just doesn't care for peaches. And so I think that I heard him actually tell that the other day, and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that stuck, because it really is true. You have to be happy with you and proud of who you are, and that positive self-talk, and just keep moving forward. I think Fred Hunter, I've ridden with him some as far as working barrel horses and learning a lot. And he always tells me, like, stay in your path, like, just focus on what you know is best and what works for you, and don't get too distracted by everything else or other people's opinions. So I think that all has played into helping me just keep moving forward too.
Yeah. Well, and I love that. And, I think it's so cool. Like, you and I were joking the other day. I said, man, I know exactly what's coming in the rodeo, because all my husband wants to watch is literally the news, the weather, and the Cowboy Channel. So, like, I know even when I'm in the kitchen, when they're playing a certain song, either what event they're on or where we're at in the specialty acts. But, it's so nice and it's so neat and it has helped. But I would just say too, like, on the other side of it as a competitor, there has been a lot of added pressure to it, because it's like, if you do good, everybody's applauding you. But if you do bad, they're like, well, what were you thinking? You walk into the cafe and they're like, yeah, I saw you missed one the other day. And I'm like, you sure it was me? And so it's been fun, but it's been a really good exposure. And I think it's just taught us as athletes and as, just you as a broadcaster and all these things, like, it's part of being a professional, and we're having to step up our level of professionalism. And there it comes again, that war in our mind. And so it's been a new journey, and it's always evolving, especially with the amount of exposure we're getting as a rodeo world and community.
Yeah. And I think in the beginning, a lot of rodeos were concerned that if they were broadcast, especially live, that they wouldn't have as big of an attendance. And we are seeing across the country sellout crowds and record-setting numbers. And so I think that's really exciting, because I know sometimes change is really hard, especially in the world of rodeo. And so to see a really positive thing happen from something that people were a little concerned about, I think that's great. And I think Abbeville actually just set new record numbers this last week I saw. So it's great to see that the exposure that the Cowboy Channel has brought to professional rodeo and all the individual rodeos. I mean, we hear a lot from people who see a rodeo and then they want to go experience it for themselves the next year. So I do think it's so positive across the board.
Yeah. And I was talking to Carly Peterson the other day about some stats. And that was one of the things that she shared with me, was the fact that now these people, because they have seen these rodeos on TV, they want to go to them. They're making them destination vacations and an actual priority to go to these different rodeos. So I am glad to see that it has helped them. And it's just growing our sport, which is, what we're all about. But one thing I want to talk about that we kind of didn't get to touch on, but as far as representing cowboys, cowgirls, stock contractors, everything about rodeo, what is one thing that has really stuck with you? I think you are one of the many people who do this, but you do it great. And you, like you said earlier, you have a standard of excellence for yourself. You have so much knowledge in the sport, and you work hard to get all of that knowledge and be fully rounded in all of the areas, whether it's in the arena, outside of the arena, at the committee meetings, production. I mean, you're very versatile in all the things that you've done. So what are some of the things that have helped you to maintain that and represent the sport of rodeo the way you do?
I think just probably the biggest thing is the relationships. Just getting to know everyone that I can, from secretaries, timers, announcers, stock contractors, contestants, different people at the rodeo, from volunteers. Like I was just in Clovis, and they had me interview different people in the community that are also such a big part of rodeo. And so I think sometimes when we each do our own thing, like when I'm involved in TV or when you show up to compete, I mean, we're so focused on what we're doing that sometimes we don't necessarily think about all the different details that go in to make that a success. And so much of it comes from volunteers, from sponsors making up, the purse and helping with all the different expenses. Of course, the stock contractor. It is, especially during the years of COVID when there weren't any rodeos, I just could not believe the amount of money that they were having to spend to keep everything, operating, but at the same time, not having any coming in from the rodeos. And I just think that would have been so stressful and overwhelming. And so sometimes I feel like, maybe they don't get the credit that they deserve. And then of course the contestants, they shouldn't be overlooked by any means, because they're the ones out there putting on the show. And when they show up, it makes a big difference as far as like, not having so many turnouts and whatnot during the rodeo. So I think there's so many different pieces of the puzzle, and when it all comes together, it's amazing to see. And of course, it's always fun for me to get to showcase and to talk about and to be there. And I absolutely love what I get to do. And it's always different, no matter what rodeo I go to, or even being in the studio, it's like every day brings something new, and I enjoy that. Always being able to improvise. Sometimes I wish it could be planned out a little more, but I don't know. It's also fun just to be able to just pick up and do whatever needs to be done at that specific time. But I will say I was just in Las Vegas with all the world champions who competed at the Thomas and Mack. So the breakaway and steer roping world champions weren't there, but it was awesome. And I wish they would have been. I hope in years to come that happens. But it was so cool to get to be around all the world champions and for them to be around each other, because typically, they're with their buddy groups or guys from their own event. And so to see them all together, and one of the questions I would ask them when I interviewed them was, what similarities do you see with all the world champions? Like, what do you all have in common? And I just think it's so much fun to think about the different things I've been able to do and still what's to come. Just always exciting things developing. And so I love getting to be a part of it. And of course, always put a good word in for the breakaway.
Thanks for doing that. So is that something like, you're going to leave us with this cliffhanger of what they all have in common? I mean, like, that was rude. I mean, can you share some excerpts, or do we have to wait until we see that come out?
Oh, you might have to wait, because it's for a special that we're doing, and they're still in the process of editing it all. And then I think it'll be released July 2nd. So everyone, is getting ready for their Cowboy Christmas run. But yeah, it was really cool to get to talk to them. And there were things, I feel like I know all of them pretty well. And there were still things, I mean, these were long, like 40-minute sit down interviews with each one. And it was really touching to see the emotion. I mean, obviously anyone who rodeos knows the highs and lows and just the challenges. And it's like when you get a win, especially a gold buckle win, I mean, it means so much, because you know what you went through to get there. And each one of them have a different story. And so for them to kind of talk about where they came from and what it took to get that gold buckle, or for some of them multiple gold buckles. I mean, the interviews were great, and some of them shared things that I hadn't heard before and didn't even know about them. And so, yeah, I'm excited. I told them whatever we don't use for this special, I wanted to kind of repurpose, kind of like the deep dive shows I did in Vegas, and let everyone have the chance to get to know them better, because rodeo fans are amazing and they're so loyal. I just feel like the surveys that we've done, I mean, that's what they've shown, is that rodeo fans are so loyal, and we see it over and over, that they step up and help those in need. And it's just like a big family. And so I think it would be awesome to let the rodeo fans get to see more of that and become even bigger fans of these contestants, but specifically the world champions that I just interviewed, because they all have amazing stories. And everyone has their downfalls in life, but I think when you look at winners, I mean, there's so much we can learn from them because I, for one, want to have a winning life.
Yeah.
In every way.
Well, you've already got that because we fight from victory, not for victory. So
Sure.
we've got that. And that's really neat. And just to get to do, like we were just talking, you were showing me pictures of your trip to Alaska last year, talking about, going back this year. It's a Bronx event this year, but just the fact that you get to go and travel and do and see. Your life is like, I mean, I say your life is like a vacation, which I know it is not because I don't want to be you at all. No, not happening. But it's the things that you've gotten to see through the opportunities. I think it's a once in a lifetime thing. And it's pretty neat that that's your job, that you get to go and experience the places in the world and the people in the world. It's a hard job, but it's a pretty neat job, the highs and lows, but there's lots of good that comes through it. And I think that that's pretty neat.
It is so cool. I actually fly out to Alaska Thursday. It's, as you mentioned, it's an extreme Bronx event this year. Calgary is bringing the Bronx, and they all compete for a big check and this some gold nuggets. It was worth, I think, about 10,000, and so it's such a cool place. But yeah, if you haven't been to Alaska, you should book a trip. It is one of the most beautiful places, and just so fun to experience what life is like up there. Being light most of the time is very unique. So yeah, that was a fun trip, and I can't wait to get back there. And then all the other places. I just found out today about a rodeo who requested me specifically back, and I'm like, well, that always makes me feel good when you go and you build those relationships with people on the committee or a part of the rodeo, and they appreciate what you did for them and want you back. And so it's a great life. It can be a little crazy at times. I wish I had a makeup artist that traveled with me. But I
thought Jamie was your makeup artist.
Right. I usually pull it together, and it is so much fun to get to do what I do. But I will say, I roped at Weatherford the other night. You didn't mention that run, but I missed my calf. But I rode up there, and it was funny. The girls that kind of did a double take, and then they were like, "Amy, we're so glad you're roping," So it's good to be back and to see everyone, when I'm doing interviews for the Cowboy Channel, but especially when I get to be there and compete too. They've all been so welcoming and fun. And so it's been great all the way around.
Well, and it is. And we're glad to have you back and glad that you're getting to do what you want to do and you love. And it's, something we didn't touch on and we probably won't today, but I mean, just the fact that you're a businesswoman, you are, work full time, but you're still getting to rope and you travel. I mean, there's so many different hats that you wear, but you're doing it, and just as a woman, as just in this industry is challenging anyway. And so just hats off to you for spurring on and getting to do what you want and love and looking good while you do it. I mean, everybody loves all the jewelry you wear, and we all give you a hard time when you don't have your makeup on, but that's the Amy that we love. So but yeah, it's pretty cool to see and do and all the things, and yeah, pretty fun.
It always makes me laugh when I meet someone when I'm not working for the Cowboy Channel and they don't recognize me, and then they say, "Oh, you don't look the same without your jewelry." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's it."
We were talking. I don't even remember what about the other day, and I was saying, you look like that. I mean, not that you look bad when you don't have your makeup on, but you don't look like Amy Wilson or something like that. And then, it wasn't like 2 seconds later, you're like, oh yeah, when you didn't do this, I think it was like when you missed, but I didn't mean it like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, just like I didn't mean that you were Amy Wilson. Like, okay, sounds good. But I think that that's really fun, and the one thing I would love to say is like, we are human, we
Right.
put our pants on the exact same way. Well, I don't know. Sometimes I have to jump into mine, but we put our pants on the exact same way that everybody else does. And we're human. And I think that's what I love about it. There's not ever a stranger I've met. And it's just pretty cool that we get to live this life that we do.
Yes, I agree completely. It is an awesome life.
Well, thanks for coming on the show today, sister. Usually I ask everybody what they would give their self if they could go back and tell their younger self something. What would it be and why? And I will let you answer that question if you want, but I feel like you already kind of have. But if you would like to answer it, you're more than welcome to.
So many things it feels like. But yeah, I just think the biggest thing is just to always know your worth and to know your true identity. And when you always just go back to a solid foundation, just like we know with any horse or anything you do, a solid foundation is so important. And so to always go back to that and how much, unconditionally the Lord loves us and is there for us. I just think that just gives me so much comfort and hope and security. And so it is a great life. And I am so very blessed. And I just always try to think positive. And I wish I would have known all that when I was young.
Well, we're not old now, but I mean, we're learning. We're learning in that learning stage. We said we wouldn't say how old we were, so that's all good and great. But
top secret.
I agree. I think that's great. And I just want to say thank you for coming to the show today, and just thank you for being honest and raw and real. And I hope that whoever needed to hear that, if you have any questions, if you need to talk to somebody, reach out to me, reach out to Amy, whomever it may be. We are always here for you, and our doors are open, and we fight from victory, from Christ, heaven on earth. So thankful that we're daughters of the King, the Most High King, and we get to live this life, and here we are. We keep going.
Yes, I love that. Well, thanks for having me on, and thanks for everything you're doing for Breakaway. I'm so glad we're friends and we get to experience all this together.
Me too, sister. Thank you for joining us on In the Loop Breakaway Roping Podcast. I truly appreciate all of your loyal support. Don't forget to leave me a review, share this episode with a friend, and if you have any questions, I want to hear from you. Email me at jordan@thebreakawayropingpodcast.com. Go check us out, sign up for our newsletter, get our email alerts, text alerts, and all things breakaway roping. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you down the road.